All right. So if you're joining us on YouTube, I forgot to push the button, and you missed some discussion about using standard in with Node CLI apps, and that it is kind of awkward to do, and maybe there are ways to that it could be better, and kind of wondering what people's pain points are with it. And personally, for me, the pain point is it's a stream, and streams are kind of a pain point. So um, I don't know that we've gotten very far with, you know, should anything be done here?
No, yeah, I think for now maybe just leave the that issue open. Maybe some folks will comment. Maybe we have new APIs that like kind of solve better that particular use case in a different way. So yeah, just have that in our radar. I think it will be nice.
Yeah.
I would, yeah, I would like to just solve the issue, right? Like having a better way from read to standard input, just using core without the userland modules.
Right. I think it would be nice to get input from more people in the community on like how they feel about it, and yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sweet. So yeah, that's something that I'd like to look at. So all right. The next thing is, and I think we're going to be skipping some of these. The FS hook stuff, I believe we are kind of in a holding pattern there. chmod-r. Also, I know Darcy said he wouldn't be here.
I'll chime in on that for a second.
Mhm.
I'll make a point of, I'd like to loop in with Darcy about it. Like, I think that, I don't know, I'm excited to get some more of our file systems stuff ported to recursive. Isaac pointed out in the thread about that there's like there's security concerns about recursive changing of file directory fields, so permissions. So I would like to better grok what he's getting at. So some discussions happening around it already.
All right. Nice made up a word. Recursivizing.
Yeah, we need to finish recursivizing our, our file system.
Yeah. Okay, so I renamed, so the next one then, so I renamed this hot module reloading thing to something like ESM, I don't remember, ESM module graph and unloading or something. I don't remember what the hell I called it, but I went in there and I tried to summarize, the two kind of the two like fundamental needs, and I don't know if I did that quite right, but it's not as simple as let us delete stuff from the cache, because we need to know what exactly to delete, and when we're going to go do something like that, and without a proper graph of some sort, like a module graph that you can traverse, we don't necessarily know what that is. And like the thing is, it's like, yes, that would be great to have insofar as like this graph, but it's like we can kind of make do. It's not perfect, but we can make do with what CommonJS has right now, right? So there's no way to go to a module and be like, okay, who there's how do I phrase this? You don't know who the parent is. You all you know is this is the first like module A loads module B. You only know that module A was the first module to load module B. You don't know what other modules are using module B, and so that's kind of the difficulty. And so, and there's, even if you can figure that out, there's like one representation in the cache of that module, and so if if you want to like delete that reference for like module C and not module D, you can't really do that. You have to delete the one thing because you only have like one reference to it. And so I don't know. It seems like we can work around that. I would hesitate to call it like a blocking requirement. I think if we had the ability to just remove things, just some ability to remove things from that cache, I think that would be progress, and we could start working with that. I'm gonna say we don't necessarily need that graph, but it would really improve tooling and efficiency of tooling if we did. And that's kind of what I understood from the Anton talking last time. And I tried to explain that in the issue 51, and I don't know if I did or not. Does that make sense? I don't know. But I think, like, you know, if he or somebody's like, yeah, that makes sense. Well, then great, we've got our requirements and we can talk about next steps. Like, does that turn into a PR? Do we go to the modules team and be like, this is what we need? I think maybe that would be best, unless, yeah, I don't know. That's, yeah. And personally, I would not feel comfortable trying to implement anything like that. And people are bound to have big opinions about how it should be.
Yeah. I've been kind of waiting patiently for, because part of it is that it uses weak maps, I think, for the implementation for modules, if I recall, or you can't iterate over the data structure that modules are in, if I recall, the way it's implemented right now. But there's like a new JavaScript feature that's in the pipeline that would actually give you the ability to observe a data structure like this and actually delete things and add things to it using a different method. So I've been waiting for that for the source map stuff, because it means I could like load and unload source maps more easily. But
what is you might be able to use thing?
Let me find I'm like blanking. And it's a random ECMA proposal. It's at like stage 3 already though. Weak references was I don't know if this is directly applicable, but when I was implementing source maps, like one of the annoying things was it wasn't easy to remove and add entries to, oh, hey Google, stop. It wasn't easy to add and remove entries because it was using a weak map. And there's actually a way to get around this with weak references, which are a feature that's on its way into JavaScript. Here we go. Let me find the actual proposal. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I guess we might be able to get some of the engineering goals behind using like immutable data structures while still having some capacity to mutate them. So there might be some good compromises there.
I can't see this. Just, can anybody else see it?
I put it in the notes, didn't I? The gist.
I can't reach the gist, but what was it? Maybe it's private. Do we have access to it?
I don't know how I would have gotten access to it.
I
let me just find the TC30. Okay.
I don't know.
I paste in the chat the proposal for weak refs from TC39.
Yeah. Let me see. How do I find the chat in this web UI? Oh, here we are. I don't know. Right. So this gives you more, at least maybe I'm being it's tangential, but this actually is gonna, when this lands, it will give me more flexibility around referencing things that have been put into the ESM module cache, because you can actually like track them and remove them as needed. So you can build kind of more complicated data structures on top of it. Maybe we can use a similar approach for figuring out if things need to be loaded or unloaded.
Right. Yeah. I remember hearing about this and being like, wow, that sounds really dangerous. Like people start to use this and they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, this, yeah. So, okay. Cool. But yeah, I
mean,
again,
in theory, I don't know.
go ahead.
I would like, I was going to say, I'd take that proposal and just like let someone poke holes in it, right? Like, see, like, why can't we do this? Like, what's that? You know, some folks will have opinions.
Do what
Proposal,
exactly?
I mean, well, you've got the issue on GitHub. Was it that you shared 51 or whatever? Or sorry, yeah, 51. I don't know. Let's shop that around to a few more people and see, like, is there any? What are the technical reasons why we can't do this? Like, who do we talk to? Probably like Brad Meck, and probably Guy, right?
Yeah, I know Guy has been positive about doing something like this. I don't know the technical limitations. Yeah, so no, yeah, I think, okay, so let me just write this. Next steps are to take the requirements to, want to just say take it to, do you want to take it directly to people, or do you want to like dump it in the modules WG, or?
Could we join like a meeting of the module working group maybe, and just bring this as like a thing that came up in the tooling working group? That might be the best way. I assume they have a monthly meeting too, right?
Yeah. I just wonder if we might need to actually create the issue to, or in order to get it on the agenda, but well, yeah, we'd need to do that. I think we couldn't just show up and crash their meeting. I suppose. Okay, so is that something you'd be interested in doing, Ben? I don't know when they meet. Let me see.
Yeah, well, I can only do some research if you want to assign me an action item, and like maybe both you and I could hop on or something as representatives from our meeting.
Looks like module team meets Wednesday at noon Pacific, every other Wednesday at noon Pacific. So
cool.
All right, so we'll do that and see where that goes. Anybody else got anything they want to say on this particular topic? Okay, so next thing is the spawn sync business. Anybody want to talk about that? Okay, so next thing then would be this better way to detect a process is exiting. I had an action item that says I was going to go and I was going to make a list of all the things we need this, you know, super event to track, and I haven't done that yet. So that's my fault, and it's still on my to-do list, and so I will do that. And so then once we do that, I think, would the next step be to probably just open a pull request that does that after, you know, maybe next meeting, I'll say, okay, this is what I came up with for all the things that it needs to track, and run it by the group. And then we can say, yeah, that sounds right, or no, it needs other stuff. And then it would be ready for a pull request, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
All right. Okay.
I think what I would say is like we should just have a goal of cleaning up some of the old documentation as well to like reference the new approach potentially. Like I just don't want to just dump a new way to detect this and then have 3 ways to detect exiting in an app. Like we have on signals, on process.exit, and then we'll have this new event. Like I just want to make sure we document it in the right places.
Right.
Because in like 6 months, I would think that should be the most predominantly advertised one for people who have this use case.
Right. Shit. Oops, did I say that? Okay. Okay, so okay, I need to make a list, and Ben says we should update the documentation, and I agree that, yeah, there's already enough of them, and it would be cool to say, use this one if you're not sure, or if you want to be really specific, use these other ones, right? Something like that. Okay. Next thing is source map support node, which is now in boldface in the meeting notes, which probably means something. What is
I was just indicating I wanted to talk about it. System. So since last we spoke, I did actually get it so you could turn on source maps programmatically in a branch. But I'm like I can't decide if it's a good idea or not, because it's confusing, because like it will only start collecting source maps once you turn it on. So if you like did this midway through your application loading, you now have source maps for 50% of your application and not the 50% that loaded early on. So I see the value for a tool like Mocha that's instrumenting an app, but then I'm like, well, if you only need to kick off a sub process like as you bootstrap, that's like adding what, like 50 milliseconds to runtime or something. Like, is it worth the confusion of having this new API method for 50 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds of performance improvement? Was my question. So it seems a little, I don't know.
It's not just
I'm
the
on the
performance,
fence.
it's complexity too, right? Because now you have to manage the sub process, and you have to manage the signals being sent from, you know, the terminal, and manage the standard IO options and all sorts of things.
Fair.
And so
Yeah.
it's just like, I want to avoid that if I can. And, you know, there's lots of stuff you can use in Node and shoot yourself in the foot with it.
Yeah, I think my other like architectural concern was that like random program foo turns this on because they like the feature, and now 3 layers up in the dependency graph, you have it turned on in Mocha even though you didn't know it was turned on. Like you can imagine some issues where it would be weird.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yes. No, I know. It's just like adding to the heap of things. Like a library could go in and it could add its own uncaught exception handler. It could like go replace something global. I don't know. So just libraries can do stuff. And so it's just.
I mean, the PR is ready, so I can make the PR for discussion if you want to. It's like, it's most of the way there.
I mean,
yeah. If you want to make a strong case for it, like it's the code's there, it works pretty well. I even found you could turn it on in the same file, and as long as it's synchronous, it will actually collect it for the file it was turned on. So
can it like retroactively do it?
That would be, there's an API for doing that, so you could potentially, I mean, it would be kind of hard. You would have to like, you could delete your module cache, and then as things are loaded, you would get stuff because it's now going to hit the module cache again. But you can't do that for ESM right now because ESM's immutable. So.
Right. Well, okay. So if you make that PR, I will go in there and be like, yes, I need this. This is why. Yeah. And so I will definitely fight for that. But, you know, I guess part of that is going to be me convincing you it's something that you want to keep into. but I will go to bat for that if you open that PR.
Hey, are you still there? Sorry, someone called me and apparently that breaks my internet.
I was saying that if you open that pull request, I will go in there and I will make the case, and I will do my best to convince you that it's what we want to do, and not just everybody else. But
yeah, I'm like right in the middle. Like I'm not like a strong no or a strong yes. But the thing that it actually enables, so part of why I did this feature first was it meant it gives me a little more tracking. It meant I built out the source map functionality a little more with making it kind of lazier, so it happens later in the flow. This, I won't get into details as to why, but this actually made it easier to replace that custom. You know, if you get an exception in Node.js, it tries to show you the line of code that the exception happened on, and it puts like a little arrow underneath it and says your exception happened here on line 22. Does anyone know what I'm talking about?
I do.
So you have like the stack trace, and then above the stack trace, you have like the kind of snippet in context.
Mm-hmm.
With source maps right now, we don't rewrite that little snippet in context because it's done in C and it's done in C++, and it's like a pain, and the source maps aren't exposed to C++ right now because the stack trace is actually in JavaScript land. Long story short, this refactor I did to make it so you can turn on source maps later in the flow made it easy to replace that C++ stack trace with one in JavaScript, where we could actually show where the exception happened in your original source, not the transpiled source. Which is kind of cool. Like, it means that you actually see like the line in TypeScript where the exception happened, not the line in your mangled JavaScript out the other end.
You know,
I thought this feature could. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So that line, that little thing that, as you said, is in C++. I did not. So I was trying to write this little library, and so what the library does is it is essentially like an exception handler for intended for libraries. And so if you are consuming the library and there's something and an exception originates in that library, it will it'll try to determine if it happened in this library, but B, it'll go and it'll show information to the user, and it will say, hey, this exception, this uncaught exception handled in this library that you're using. We would love information about what you did to cause this exception, because we want to handle it, or we want to say, oh no, that isn't our fault or something, but at minimum we should know about it. And so it just like dumps all this information to the terminal. It gives a URL, and you click on the URL, and it goes and it has a template for a GitHub issue and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, that one little line, like, if I have an uncaught exception handler, or if I have some sort of exception handler, and I trap an error and then I want to rethrow it, well, the place where I rethrew it is where that line, that's the line that will show, right? Because that's like the last place that the exception. So anyway, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to show the original error, but that little idiot line was getting in my way. And I wanted to be able to change what that line was, because I want to show them where in context it happened in that library, not in my wrapper thing. So is what you're doing enabling somebody to change what that line does?
Yes. So in a way, we would have to refactor it a bit. But what I did is basically, I've now in C++, C++ knows that source maps have been turned on. So before this, C++ didn't have a clue what source maps were. Now it at least knows that source maps are turned on. And when it gets to that line that's about to add that weird arrow line in C++, it just says, if source maps are turned on, don't do that. And then when you get to your prepare a stack trace step, which is how source maps are applied, which you could override yourself, you can then add your own thing at the top of the source map you're preparing, or sorry, at the top of the stack trace you're preparing, you could add your own error message, basically. So basically what I'm suggesting is some way to turn off that annoying one line in C++ from happening, so that you can instead do it in JavaScript land with your prepare stack trace. Totally.
You can suppress it.
Oh yeah, totally. Like you can add a comment line. I think Anna added that a couple years ago. It's
Right.
like you had a comment and then it just.
Yeah, you can add this comment, and that's what I ended up doing. But yeah, it would be better to have. It would be cool to. I'm just saying, if you are messing with that sort of thing, sure, it would be great if you could actually like fiddle with how that is displayed.
Honestly, like I think it would be better if it happened in JavaScript land anyways. Like it's kind of weird that just this one step of the stack trace happens in C++. Yeah.
And as far
I don't
as
know,
I know,
getting,
that comment to turn it off is undocumented like magic. I don't know. I think I had to look at the node source to figure out, oh, it's checking for this thing, and I can just disable it. Yeah.
Anyways, so that aside, maybe this is a baby step towards what you want, but that aside, like, is this behavior that we want to maintain into a world with source maps, or do we just like get rid of that line entirely and call it done? Like, you know, just have the stack trace, don't have the contextual error. How much value does that contextual error add versus the pain in implementing it?
I mean, I think it is pretty nice, right? If it points you right to where in your code the exception happened, like, seems like a pretty useful feature.
I mean, isn't that the point of stack trace?
Fine, you're right. You're right. I have it working. I actually have it working.
Oh, you want to hear?
But I have it working, but I was frustrated because the line. I don't know. I'm so frustrated by this errors file because the original code points to the start of the throw when you're throwing an error. And the line reported by the stack trace is the start of the error object, not the start of the throw. And I'm like, this works perfectly, but if I open up a pull request, the first thing anyone's going to say is, why is your arrow underneath the error message instead of underneath the throw message? And I'm either going to have to like write code that screws around trying to move the arrow over, figure out why I have a different position in the stack trace than C++ has, or argue that it doesn't matter because who cares if the arrow is under the error or the throw. So I'm like, I'm already picturing how annoying of a pull request this is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you want to create errors and then like throw them later, right? I don't know.
Anyways, it sounds like pretty unanimous that this is a good feature though, so maybe I'll open a pull request for it.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so okay. So next, the last thing here on the list is our argument parsing. I think we've all been busy with other stuff, but
yeah. I still think, like, I'd love to still work on it with Roy and you. I think it would be fun, or anyone else who's interested. I had a thought, and I don't know if this relates to argument parsing or not, but I was thinking there's like a type of thing people use rimraf or McDirt for in Node.js applications, which is in their npm scripts to create a folder when their tests run or something, or to remove a folder after their tests finish running. Now that we're recursifying all of our file system APIs and like we basically have this rimraf functionality, there's still not an easy way to like launch a node bin with just saying like, just do this one little remove this directory for me, or just create this directory recursively for me. I was having this thought, like if we have this lovely command line parser in Node now, like because we built one, like it's one of the things that should be a reach goal, or like something that we can then build on top of it, the ability to make it these really short little npm scripts that instead of using rimraf to remove a directory after testing, or instead of using McDirt to create a directory as you run your init script, what if you were just running the node bin to do this stuff and could pass a couple arguments into it? I thought this would be really cool.
Right. I just put in the chat there, Python-m simple HTTP server. So you install Python and it comes with all these like little tools, right? It comes with these built-in modules that aren't part of the like standard library, but they're, one of them is like simple HTTP server. And it's always there, and it's in the system. And you can go into any directory and you say Python-m simple HTTP server. I think that's what it's called anyway. And it opens a port and it serves the files in that directory. And it's just like this little tiny useful tool that comes with Python. Of course, Python knows, you know, it's notorious for throwing the whole kitchen sink in there. But that is like some precedence for doing something like this, right? So it's not totally unheard of. That'd be neat.
I basically want to be able to, oh, sorry.
I was gonna say, I do like the idea. Like one of, I think there's two reasons why like Rimwrap, the package, is still around, or two like features it has that isn't in the Node version, right? Which is globbing and the CLI or the bin links. So yeah, I mean, it'd be really nice to be able to, like, you could in theory do this, right, with Node, but you'd have to, it's like, if you do like Node-E, like import Rimwrap, it's just a little awkward. So yeah, I mean, that would be pretty cool. I like the idea.
Maybe like a command-defying effort that runs parallel to the recursifying effort.
Right.
Yeah.
And this would probably make more sense as a Node thing, not an NPM thing, because you have something like that in your package scripts and it's no longer portable to other package manager CLIs, right? Because the script expects something like Rimwrap to be there, and MTM's like, oh, I'm gonna make this available to all these scripts just to save people headaches, right? But if the other ones don't do it, then that's more headaches for everybody. So I think it makes more sense to be a Node thing if it was going to be anything, right?
Yeah. And I do kind of think it's a step after doing the minimal command line parser, because then like that would be the command line parser you use, whereas the command line parser for Node itself is a little difficult to add things to. I mean, maybe they're not coupled to each other, but it feels like it would be nice if it was just like a mode where like, oh, if it's one of these things, it's just its own simple little command line parser that gets passed to Rimwrap or McDirp or something.
Right.
I don't know, maybe they don't have to be coupled at all.
Huh.
But anyways, I think this would be really exciting in this kind of adjacent work, at least.
Oh. I was just playing around with so when you install like a module globally with npm, it goes in your global node modules, and if you, and most of the time you're going to have the bin directory in your path. Wouldn't it be neat if there was some way to, I don't know, maybe it wouldn't be neat. Is there some way you can just like require something in your global node modules? Like without having to point it to an absolute path? I don't know. I've always wondered like why can't we do this? Why can't I install a library globally and require it? I don't know. Guess it's neither here nor there. Okay, yeah. It would be cool to do something like that. I mean, I think we could do some pretty cool, like little examples in documentation, for, you know, if we land something like this. Or, you know, there is a guide section in the Node docs, maybe just like a guide. This is how you can make command line apps with Node using just our built-in features.
Yeah, and I think like as we maybe I don't know if it, like I was saying, I don't know if it exactly fits in with what we've been talking around command line parsing, but maybe it does. Maybe we're like, I don't know, maybe it helps us make more of a case as to why this would be, a simple command line parser would be nice in Node. We can say, well, look, we've written these, we've made rimraf recursive, we've made mcderp recursive, we're making the file permission stuff recursive. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of NPM modules that have rimraf or mcderp in their scripts field. Here's how this simple little argument parser would make it really easy for folks to switch this out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think you start to have it. And now like Node starts to be this more powerful thing just standing on its own without actually increasing the API surface a huge amount.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I got about 5 minutes left. Does anybody want to show and tell or anything?
Oh man, I have something super cool, but I've been dominating the meeting. So if anyone else has something super cool, please show it. I can share for
next
meeting.
Yeah, go for it.
I think this will be applicable to Chris. Let me share my whole screen. Can you see my whole screen now?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been at Google working on this release please thing for quite some time, but I don't really know the process for making it so I could host it for the wider community, like the GitHub app we wrote. But it turned out that with the newer types of GitHub actions, you can do this in a GitHub action. I don't need to host anything for you, and it works really well. So you can create a, actually switched Yargs to this. You create this really minimal GitHub action. I'll show you on Yargs, actually. So I have this minimal GitHub action called release please. Oh, wait, crap. Maybe I didn't port it over, or I left some craft in there, it looks like. So I have this minimal GitHub action called release please that listens on pushes to master. And then on a push to master, it runs the my bco release please action and with this secret. Then this GitHub action magically creates these release PRs that look like Chore release 1.4.0. These get updated as you land new work to your default branch. So, you know, if you land 4 more things, they'll just start to get glommed in over features and bug fixes. When you merge this thing, it results in a release being created for you. So this release will be automatically created here. Here's like one of my last releases. Yeah, so that's it. It like automates your creation of GitHub releases based on conventional commit messages. And you don't have to run a service for it. It just runs as a GitHub action, which I thought was really cool. And
awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
Yeah, it doesn't publish to NPM for you. Like I still don't quite know a good way to do that and get like to still have TFA. We at Google we have the Wombat dressing room, which we open sourced for publishing to NPM with TFA, but not sure how to run that as an action. I was talking to Chris about that. So yeah, it's only half the battle. It only gets you your release.
Yeah, we're working on the proposal for having a staging area, right? That you can all like you can have your bot auto publishing to the staging area, and then the 2-factor will only be like at the moment you make that public.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
Yeah, if any of you want to follow up, like in our RFC calls, like I think that was in the agenda last time. Maybe not the last one, maybe the one before. But yeah,
cool. Yeah, I'd be interested to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I definitely think you'd be interested in. Yeah, it'd be nice.
Cool. Yeah, but everyone should try that out if they want to automate their releases.
Yeah, I was gonna say we use like learn a changelog for Create React app, but you just run that in the terminal and like copy and paste that into a release. So yeah, definitely seems to take some of the tedious work out of that.
Yeah, I'll look at using this in Report Toolkit. I wish I could use it in Mocha. Wow, but can't get the commit messages to look like that. So just thinking outside the box. No, so like we know about the OTP stuff in publishing. What if like you had a tool, and so you would have this, I don't know, maybe you'd have an account that was like an NPM account, and that NPM account was for your releases, and you own a package. You are the owner of the package. You are you. And so when it's time to release, you have some script that adds this other bot or whatever, adds that NPM user to the owners of your package. And then with no, there's no 2FA enabled there. And then and then that bot publishes your package. And then as soon as it's done, it removes them from the owners list or something. I don't know. Would that like work? I mean, it seems flimsy as hell, but I mean
that's similar. Like what we do with the Wombat dressing room is we have a user on all of our Google NPM packages that does have TFA enabled on it. And then we have a magic server somewhere that does the OTP dance for that one special user.
So
I don't know about adding it and removing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
As an alternative to running a server, because something like that could ostensibly be done with like a GitHub action, and I don't know if that would be like reasonable. Probably not.
The thing is that the security folks are not gonna like it. The idea of having 2FA is to have some way to authenticate, like having a second factor, right? Like not have just, because if your user is compromised, if that user, even though you're adding and removing it, if it gets compromised on the way, there's nothing you can do, right? So security folks will definitely not approve your idea, I guess.
You could create it and then remove it, like create the user, then delete the user. I don't know.
Right, yeah.
Like a temporary thing. What about that? Like just like temporary keys that, hey, this publish key lasts 3 minutes. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know of any other service that like, where you're trying to automate stuff and it makes you go through the OTP dance. Like, does anybody know another thing that makes this, because every place that I see works with keys and tokens and shit, right?
I've been to other big like enterprise companies that do have it as part of like everything you do, and there's like an app on your phone where you just have to hit your thumb on it occasionally when you're doing something on a web app, like that's automated. So I've definitely seen it.
I don't know. I don't do enough deployments. I don't do any deployments.
I have to run. I'm doing
we're past time.
Thing. Yeah.
So all right, I'll see you guys 2 weeks.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good weekend.